And good afternoon, everyone, or at least from Final Fantasy Standard Time. This is the Final Fantasy Randomizer, our weekly race on speed gaming. This is MG Weirdo here in the booth with Asher.
Good afternoon or evening for those of you across the Atlantic, or morning if you're over by the Pacific.
Yeah, welcome everyone, and yeah, we have a race for you today between Elmarken and Thunderclawed. So, Elmarken, I can appreciate he's representing one of his opponents and our comms team here. I guess we get to be black mages today. And
Two-man and kill us.
Okay, probably so. And then Thunderclawed representing something that's on my mind, which is lunch.
Oh no, that's good. And today's flags, hello, welcome those of you on Speed Gaming 2 that are watching and popping in. This is a flag set that is near and dear to the community's heart because this is the Spring Tournament Swiss flag. Spring Tournament, you still have time to sign up for it. And this week is actually this race is going to be featuring the air flags, or a part of the flag set where one of the incentive locations is in Sky Castle. So, MG Weirdo, as a proponent of Team Sky, 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 can you tell the audience what that means?
That means I like going to Sky early because it has a fairly large number of chests, but also along the way, while you're walking to those chests, they're a little bit spread out. You have effectively a walking grind, so you can get a lot of experience and get a lot of treasure checks at the same time, which is fantastic. It's sort of the best of both worlds. There are one or two nasty encounters, but for the most part, the encounters you find are friendly, so why wouldn't you go Sky?
Well, that's very true, and one of the interesting things about this flag set, if maybe you haven't touched Final Fantasy Randomizer for a while, is that it features a lot of different possibilities for routing. The runners will be starting off trying to find the canal, potentially, to get out of the inner continent, and if you find the ruby, it's not a troll item, it could be hiding one or two key items. But it looks like our runners are going to be getting ready to go here in just a moment as Weirdo has lifted the gates. Elmarken and Thunderclawed are both very capable runners, two of the top newer runners in the community, and both looking to make some noise in the spring tournament. I'm very excited to see what they can do. We have two black mages, a fighter and a red mage on one side, and Fighter Rainbow on the other side. So this will be a tale of the tape as the runners are going to be getting here and getting started in just a moment.
Yeah, it's always a good guess as to, Fighter Rainbow is a solid party. You know you have access to all of the white magic, where Elmarken's taken a little bit more of a gamble, although it's not too big. There's usually... you usually get enough white magic with that red mage, and it's not strictly required.
And plus, as we get them running into Canaria, the towns are not shuffled in this flag set, unlike Spring Tournament last year. And White Magic is going to tell us some news real quick. Heal 3 is locked out to White Mage, as Wall will be available on promotion, and Black Magic has some sweepers. We have Elmarken re-rolling immediately. Weirdo, what do you think he saw that he wants to pick up on the White Magic?
I mean, it's got to be Heal 3, like you said. I mean, I guess it could be Wall, and that really has to do with ribbons, because it's very much an endgame spell.
And one nice thing that's kind of understated about Heal 3, which does work in the randomizer appropriately, is that it is a great time save over the course of the seed, because you don't have to constantly menu for healing, you can just drop in. The time adds up for menuing throughout, and you can see he's gunning straight for Heal 3. He keeps his two black mages, which is a little unusual. Elmarken, a big fan of the red mage. I guess he didn't want to wear his big hat today. As Thunderclawed entering Temple of Fiends at about a minute time, which is ideally what you want to do in this kind of flag set to see if you can go fast. And there's a canoe right away.
Man, picking up a canoe this early, that means ice is on the table, that means volcano is on the table. Both are strong early dungeons. It means we have a lot more areas to explore.
Yes, and that is something where if you see the canoe early on these flags, you need to get your alarm bell sounded, you need to get ready, because you are going to have, as Thunder takes a wipe there, but you're going to have to get ready to dive. It's not just marsh that's on the table. You can see the runners. If you may have noticed, they have a ship available at the Canaria dock, but that'll just make the canoe go around because it's not just the marsh chest and the free chests that are available in Matoya's Temple of Fiends and the Dwarf Cave. We have a lot more stuff to take care of, as these zombies are making them kind of tired, and we have another reset. Oh man,
I didn't notice. Did you notice if there were save items available in the Canaria shop? Because that would be a huge time save right now for Ale Markin.
I'm not entirely sure, but if Ale is skipping the canoe right now, that could be a problem. Thunder is definitely going for it. I don't know if Ale made it to that chest. This could be just a thwack the ghouls and come back later if this is getting to be that annoying. Hello, Falconic and Pyrelight, you're absolutely right. The zombie apocalypse comes with some NyQuil. And Ale gets his canoe. Danny, the great, who is tracking today, constantly clicking on and off these buttons. Hi, Danny.
Yeah, thank you, Danny, for setting this up and tracking as always. Just while we fight our way through this slumber, I wanted to mention that while these are spring tournament flags, signups for our spring tournament are still open through the end of this week, through Sunday night. So if you see this, you are welcome to join. No experience needed. We've had some fantastic people last year people would join with no experience and manage to do well. It's really it's a great time. I will be tracking and restreaming and such. But Asher, maybe you can talk a little bit more about experience running in it.
Sure, and we'll do that in just a little bit. Just to give an update for those of you watching at home, the bottle came from the king, and the loot came from the princess. Something is this even randomized? But the key thing about the bottle here is that because towns are not shuffled, we might be seeing that come to play later, or the bottle could just be a garbage item. We don't know. But Ale is the first person to defeat Garland, spoiler alert, sorry, but Thundercloud makes it through too. Both runners have got to be feeling the heat a little bit, it being 4 minutes in, and they're just now getting out of the first stretch of the game.
Yeah, those zombies with sleep really slowed it down, and really you could see if someone gets a different encounter, or if someone resists a sleep and gets a runoff, that would have been a big time pickup, and it's just behind where you'd feel comfortable from every other seed.
Yeah, as we're getting to look at Provoca now. Provoca very important for the level 2 magic. And we have not a lot. Soft is okay utility. Harm 3 is a okay sweeper for the white mage, but not really what you want to see at level 2 for the Night Later. Lit 3, Lock and Quake available is going to be a really big get for Ale Markin. Lightning is probably the most versatile element of spell that you can carry through most of the game, and that's a really good sweeper for 2 black mages.
Yeah, certainly has the least resistances, and then Cake in case Lich wants to come to his birthday party later. But yeah, I wonder what Ale Markin's thinking about re-rolling that red mage to a white mage with, level 1 was nice, but level 2 not so helpful.
Well, at the end of the day, he's going to live with it now. Just wonder if he's going to keep the mage or not. As we talk to Bicky, don't forget to talk to Bicky. I did that in a practice race earlier this week. And you can see a little bit of a difference here in the routing. Thunder talking and going after Bicky first, whereas Ale checked the shops first. That's actually a decent strategy if you don't have a lot of gold, because these pirates do give you some money. They're not completely broke pirates. But we have the crystal, which means Matoya is just a quick hop on the ship away. And you can see Ale holding on to that lead that he got from getting out of Garland and keeping it pretty consistent. Thunder has some shopping he's got to do, and he's going to be happy to find that Lit 3. As you're going to see both your runners trying to avoid as many overworld encounters as possible. These Sahags are kind of empty carbs. They appear everywhere, they give no experience, and it's really just a time sink. And this encounter table, from what I'm seeing so far, is not friendly. And when I say encounter table, Weirdo, can you kind of explain to the audience what that means?
I'm not the best at manipulating it, but I understand the idea. So the encounter table is a function of how Final Fantasy implemented randomization. There is a table of values that every time you take a step, you increment that value, except for certain squares that we'll see mostly later. And if your value's high enough, you get an encounter on that step. So we can, using a hard reset that encounter table and start over. And if we know that there's a large sequence of low values, then we can avoid encounters. If we can't avoid those encounters, then, or if you see a particularly nasty one, you might do a soft reset, and that will keep your step count to where you just sequence through what those gaps are.
Well, thank you very much for that. You may have noticed that Falconic put a bunch of pool noodles up in the chat. The reason for that is because the Vorpal has been found. Some people call it the game changer. I don't know. I prefer Summer going to the pool, swinging a pool noodle around, and maybe possibly, I don't know, doing 1 or 2 damage. The Vorpal is actually a really valuable sword because of its very high crit rate, but you need to support it with spells. And one of those spells is an Elfland that's fast. You want to be able to get more hits. The Vorpal gets its 5th swing at level 22, but that is an in-game weapon that is easily available for both Thunder and Ale, so they won't have to worry about that as well. As TNT, yes, I agree. You can totally throw that Vorpal from the Sky Fortress Bridge or the window. There's plenty of good opportunities there. And there's, Exit! Exit is going to be Red Mage learnable at level 4. That's really big for Thunder. He's not going to be penalized for that. And there's level 4 Nuke as well. This is a good magic seed today.
Yeah, the other thing that I noticed was that we had Life 2 and Slot 3, level 3, which means it is White Mage learnable, Red Mage learnable, and Knight learnable. So that Life 2 coming back to Elfland later on, remembering that, could prove to be a major influence in our game, especially late game.
Yeah, because one of the risks that you run, at least with Ale's original party, is what if I don't get a spell if I don't take a White Mage, especially for Life, and especially for Cure 4, but that's not going to matter with Thunderclawed. He has the Rainbow Party anyway, but his Red Mage is going to be an extra life caster. As we have Ale going west, we do have the Rod that was picked up from the Crystal Turnin, I believe, as Ale now wisely goes east to see the Circle of Sages, who are in a circle today, to see what key item they have.
Yeah, and this will also put him in position to check Ice Cave, which is incentivized today. We do have Exit, so we can get out of there quickly. We don't have Warp, unfortunately, but that'll work. We might also see a little bit of a grind to get some spell charges, and so I'll look forward to see that. Just Crescent Lake happens to be right near where about 4 different encounter zones collide, and if you can find the Peds, they're the best experience for the least trouble.
And then there's also the possibility of Ale possibly... Well, we have the Oxy Ale, so that nixes the first thing, because if that was the floater, the world would have opened up to him with the canoe there. Because in this flag set you only have open progression on, you need both the canoe and the floater to get in the sky. So that's a little bit of sandbagging. But I do agree with you. The play here is probably to try and get spell charges of some point. Level 3 and level 4 are loaded. Lit 3 is good enough to get through a lot of Ice Cave especially, but it's because Ice Cave's so full of undead and it doesn't resist lightning. But the issue you're going to run into is that you need some of that endurance, especially because you're going to have to do a full lap with only exit access. Plus, you really want one level 4 exit charge. So they're going to be looking to get level 10. Those groups of scorpions and snakes are pretty good. Giants are good for gold, but not for experience. And correct me if I'm wrong, Weirdo, I don't think we've seen a shop item yet either, have we?
Not that I've noticed. So, I mean, I didn't catch completely the Canaria shop, but they didn't go back there, they didn't spend a lot of time there, and for that matter, we might not have enough money for it.
Yeah, that's
the one thing I have seen in a shop that's interesting was the gold bracelet for about 38,000. So not something we can buy just yet, but a good piece of endgame armor for our wizards, since we have quite a few of them.
Yeah, and with the way the scaling works in this flag set, it is 5% per key item, which means you don't necessarily start off with a lot because the gold gain is a little slow. But at the end of the day, as you go and play through a little bit more, there's one of 2 options. You can find a good tile or a good encounter and get some gold that way with more key items, or you can dive a dungeon. And one of the little practice notes that I've made as I've been practicing for the spring tournament is sometimes it's worthwhile to dive Volcano, at least to go to the armory, especially with exit access, because a lot of times if you need that early gold for a key item, you can get it from one of those boxes or get something to sell, like maybe the Vorpal, or definitely the Katana, which is also picked up because all they can do is put the Katana on their mantle and tell everybody, look at my Katana I got at Matoya's yard sale. Hey, Greg. Hope you're having a good afternoon. And TNT, thank you for pointing out Cure 4 and Life 2 at level 3. Level 3 is stacked. Early magic in this game is stacked, as there are the EXPs, or the Peds. Let's see if they're chonky boys today.
Yeah, as these Lit 3s come out, over 100 hit points, so certainly a stuff in there. We're not hitting them very hard with our fighter, well, and the White Mage, I'm not even sure the White Mage has a hammer in hand.
The White Mage is swinging away with heal 3, healing the party for just enough, as these Peds are hitting kind of hard, but they have some life, but not prohibitively too high life, as Ale's doing good at level 8. And yes, Greg, we do have the spring tournament coming up, as you will hear us say again and again, because it is almost sign-up eve. Sign-ups are going through the March 15th, and we have a really, really big field, actually a record-sized field. I think before the broadcast started, we were up to 63 signups, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's enough that we've added an extra round of Swiss, so you will be guaranteed 6 games. We have a Swiss round to determine placements, and then the top scorers from that will go on to the playoffs.
Ale doing the aforementioned volcano dive, as we have scorpions everywhere. And I think the Scorpions had something, because he reset right away.
They had glare.
Oh, glare. I love it when Scorpions glare at me.
Well, and with 6 of them, you're probably going to get hit by it at this level. We have the power staff that is good for powering up your bank account and nothing else, which was very disappointing to me because I know I spent a lot of time trying to use the power staff and was very disappointed when nothing happened.
As you can see here, Ale and Thunder doing the volcano high five. Already, oh, interesting. Thunder's going to be going towards the hairpin chest. I wonder if he's going to go all the way in. As you can see, fire encounters here. Now, fires are something you don't typically see on the floor, but thanks to Meridian BC doing one quick fix of the code, we have Encounter 8 available. And when you hear the words Encounter 8, you're going to hear that a lot in Spring Tournament. It's one of the largest changes to the flag set in this entire tournament, is that you have some encounters that are typically very rare, like Blue Dragons and Mirage Tower, Green Dragons and Waterfall. But because we have Encounter shuffled and Encounter 8 appears in that shuffle again, those rare encounters like double fires or regular fires here can be a lot more common, and you do not want to throw Lit 3 into fire. That doesn't even work in real life, much less this game.
Yeah, and so while you're explaining the encounters, we have El Markin looting the treasury and finding a bunch of little stuff, and then a white shirt.
And the canal. That is such an important find, because now that opens up the outer sea to everywhere else. And you know, that's good news for Ale, and it's bad news in a way, maybe a Pyrrhic victory, because that opens up a lot more chests to where the floater could potentially be. But with Oxyel and Rod available, and oddly enough, none of the items to get into Sky, it is a distinct possibility that this could be a floaterless seed, which we know Greg is a big fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's check your incentive locations. I mean, I certainly agree with checking this floor in Volcano, but I would be doing what Thunderclaw is doing. Heading out, I think he's got to go back in for the treasury. But yeah, head out, save, and I would probably bail after this and head over to Ice, which is usually a little bit kinder to me than the lower levels, especially Carry for Volcano.
As Thunder gets his canal, and I agree, Weirdo, you can definitely justify a deep dive if you want to dig chest here, because you have exit access. Of course, Ham just got thwacked, so I don't know about that, but I also do want to give a shout out to Airborne Muffins, which sounds delicious. Yes, I do agree, the font in this is so clean, and you may notice between Ale Markin and Thundercloud screens, they do have two different sort of window panes here. Ale is using one of the fun percent things called the Modern Battlefield, which is my preference, which takes away some of the white lines everywhere. It kind of has a cleaner, streamlined look. Thunder running the default Final Fantasy, except for using the Final Fantasy IV party, as he gets his white shirt as well.
Yeah, and we do have some other modifications. Ilmarkin is running the fun names, I believe.
Yes, he is. That's why I get EX Peds instead of regular old Peds.
So just some minor changes so he'll have George instead of Ogres and so on as we go through. Gregly Puff has a question. Who are these two runners? So Ilmarkin is a former Iron Gold champion, still one of the top ranked contenders. Both of these two are definitely veterans of the scene and are extremely fast runners.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Ale is really someone who's burst onto the scene pretty hard since the beginning, towards the end of last year. He had run a few things on the Discord, but his first competitive racing was in the Platypus Invitational, where he cleaned up and did great. And Thunderclaw made a name for himself in the Onrak Summer Vacation and the co-op tournament. Last year, he joined just after the spring tournament and immediately started crushing people. So when I said at the beginning of this broadcast that these are two of the top runners, I was not kidding. This is just an absolute delight of a pairing to have on stream today. As Falk can attest, the co-op tourney was fire. I assume that's fire. That could be something else. All right.
Either way, we're making it fire if it's not.
That's fine. As we have Ale and Thunder both sticking around. I wonder if they're going to keep diving chest here, if Ale looked like he was just getting some experience. He does have two people dead. Weirdo, you're still alive, so congratulations.
Well, thanks for taking the hit for me, buddy, but alright, it's flip a coin between hitting those last two spots. But yeah, Ilmarkin did not have exit available, even if he would have had the levels for to cast it. Saves, makes his way out, and does not have life, so he's trying to make it to Crescent Lake to buy some resurrections rather than making them himself.
Well, that left turn tells me that Ale's going towards Elfland because that's where he parked his boat. And I guess this is a good time to break out the flag set and just talk about it briefly for a moment, as Greg needs a reminder. It was not you and the upstarts of Dengwu. You can see Danny3883, one of our co-op champions, here tracking for us today. But in terms of this flag, one of the real... Oh god, those grumps had something. But one of the issues that Ale's going to face here now is that for the key items that are available, he has some access to Fiend Dungeons. He has 2 loose items that they're still looking out for. He has the Canal, which is always going to be loose in these flags, but he has all the chest in Earth available, all the chest in Sea available. There's an incentive chest in Sky that he can't reach. Because he has Canoe, he can also do Ordeals and Waterfall, which are incentive locations, or he could go to Ice, which Thunder is gonna take on now. What a brave soul.
Well, this was the play I was considering, was to clear out Volcano and Ice together while I was over there. But Ilmarkin certainly has a different idea in mind. Certainly doing some shopping for that level 3 and level 4 magic now that we picked up a bunch of cash from Volcano. And that's a reasonable play too, to pick up those spells, and then we'll see where he goes from here. Back on the ship at least, so probably breaking out.
Yeah, and I do wonder a little bit if this is some gamesmanship. Ale and Thunder very familiar with each other. This could be a little bit of Thunder saying, I know Ale's not going to make this check, let me make this check. His levels may look a little low, but it's probably good enough if the Ice Cave is cooperative. But of course, with Stone Glance coming from the Undead, this may not be a very cooperative dive.
Yeah, and then maybe... Oh, and then damage poison. That's what causes him to reset. The glance was annoying, but the damage poison would have been enough to wipe his party, especially at this level. But he just does a soft reset and runs back in, finding a Frost Dragon.
Yeah, which is another
running away.
But yeah, that's one of the things here for newer players you may not realize is that Ice Cave may have been an absolute terror, and these stun touch raids are certainly bad as well. But level 10 is sometimes enough to actually make it through. But unfortunately, we have these. This may just be a dead dive, but Thunder's making a commitment. He may be doing this 3 times. He may keep doing it. But he's got the levels, but Ale is going to be checking some other spots. Ordeals is a very popular check, just because even if you don't have Warp, it's pretty fast. So we'll see what Ale does here.
Yeah, Ordeals is incentivized, and it's also a little bit faster walking over land to get to it than it is from where you have to park the floater. Now, you have those sea tiles, but sea tiles are a lower encounter rate, so you can go a lot further, a lot faster over the sea than you will over land. And certainly there's a couple of very annoying encounters there. As we're going through the pillar maze, it is not pick the bottom every time. It is randomized, like everything else in our randomizer, so you have to solve the maze all over every time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think one of my biggest challenges when I was a newer runner was just keeping track of where the pillars were. And I would write down, keep a little notepad next to me, is, oh my god, something in that pack has mute. This just went from bad to worse for Thunder. And I don't know how many soft potions he's packing, if any, but this ambush pack is a serious problem. And right now, Thunder's got to hope that whatever's in ice is required. As he has 5 softs, he's going to be able to make it out. But if this is one of the non-progression items, such as the Tail, Thor Hammer, Opal Bracelet, or Power Gauntlet, none of which we've seen, then this is going to be an issue. That's a very familiar spike tile for Thunder there, as these cockatrices have Death Glare. Oh, the seed keeps giving, and there's a loose slab. It's something. Weirdo,
Yeah.
Quick question. Do you exit out with the loose slab and just try again? Or do you keep going?
I think you have to check that main chest. If you're already through here, you've cleared out most of it, you do your first loop because you're getting into different sets of encounters. You check that main chest, and then you think about just whether it's a exit out or just a reset out and come back later.
Well, that water tile's bad news.
Yeah, they hit hard. They're vulnerable to ice for some reason, but they might be a good XP tile later in the game.
If only he had access to ice.
Thunder going back in, that's a little strange.
Well, he knows the slab's there. Well, I mean, one of the unfortunate downsides is that without the towns being shuffled, or with the towns being in their default locations, the slab is going to be a post-floater turn-in. And the way the randomizer works is that could very well be something that's required, or this could be an entirely floaterless seed, and that slab leads to nothing. We won't know till later, but it's something to look out for. Because if Ale ends up being able to skip Ice Cave, which has 2 incentive items that we know of in there, then that's going to be an even bigger time gain than he already has.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm not a fan of, beating your head against a wall, but getting that information of what's in the incentivized chest is really important because, of course, that could be your floater, and that could put Thunderclawed back even or even slightly ahead.
Well, I've got to credit Thunder for his commitment here. I'm more of the 3 strikes and you run away kind of racer, but Thunder is one that will push and push and push. I am curious once again if he's going to try and exit out with the slab. If nothing else, it's 5% bonus experience in gold right now, as Ale has the TNT, so we don't know if Ordeals is required yet either.
Yeah, and also as Falconic points out, we have we found an Ice Sword first, but then we found the Sun Sword, also commonly known as the Woat Sword, for one of our community members and admins that's his favorite sword. Sun Sword is the best sword that, other than Masamune, that you can use before promotion. So that is a fantastic find for Ale Markin that will let his fighter start putting out some damage, and will change how he needs to distribute his resources, how often he needs to cast spells, versus having encounters where the fighter can just carry them through.
Ooh, and I'm very curious about Thunder's route here. I know he's looking for loose items, but if he just wants to get the heck out of Dodge in the ice cave, I'm a little curious if he's going to go where the spike tile is for that chest check, and he doesn't. I was wondering if he'd even skip those 6 chests on the southwest. But Thunder is looking like he just wants to get in, get out as fast as possible. And one of the things we haven't really talked about yet is that the spike tiles in these flags are shuffled, and they do include the B-side encounters, as Thunder is skipping even another greed chest in the hallway. That is, he knows that he's got to commit to this play and get out. But yeah, the spike tiles are pretty much as random. Eyes are not going to be where eyes are, but we could also have a tile with multiple eyes, which would be very exciting, as, oh, there is the glare cockatrice once again. And we have a crown at the Oasis.
Yeah, so vanilla location, just not the vanilla item there for our shop item. Although the Oasis has a couple of extra things to check. We have lobsters on that trap tile. We've seen some interesting trap tiles so far. And Thundercloud finds the tail, so...
Not what he wanted to find there.
Not required.
Definitely not what he wanted there. Like I said, there's a distinct possibility with having to go all the way to Lefane to turn in the slab, that slab is not going to have the value that Thundercloud needs to make up the time for, what was it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wipes in ice? 4 or 5?
Yeah, honestly, I stopped counting. It was quite a few. And he certainly left some chests unopened. He left a couple of spike tiles unchecked. I don't blame him, certainly. I would not go back there unless I really had to. Probably a reasonable skip, but again, it's a randomizer, so you never know. So Pyre Light in chat pointing out that Thunderclaw did get the Zeus gauntlets down there, which is a good pickup because that allows you to have a sweeper on your fighter. Those gauntlets, when used, will cast Lit 2, which is a good way of saving spell charges, doing a little damage to some of these larger packs, especially like those glare cockatrices earlier, which, not a lot of health, but certainly they end up doing a lot of damage.
The waterfall that Ale Markin is going through as well, so that... I don't know. It could be good, it could be bad. This is one of those situations now where we know what's in Ice Cave, but obviously Ale doesn't know what's going on. This is something that at some point you just have to commit to a play here, and Ale looks like he's probably going for, since he has the Oxy, I'll try to knock out C along.
Yeah, no, I don't blame him. He's hit level 13, so he's certainly up there in the right region for this area. And okay, Brack not hitting the mummy, but he's clearing up all these sea checks and clearing up this northern continent, what he can do with the items that he has. And, so it's good routing. It makes sense in that regard. Although the mute, I'm sure, is a bit annoying, but it's not doing any damage. It's not killing his characters, just slowing him down. The good thing is that these mummies will not be on the trap tile, or are very unlikely to be on the trap tile, rather. We're probably going to have something else here, and we'll see what that is.
Is brutal. I know, Weirdo, you gave an X. One of the things with the encounter rate in this flag set is that overworld encounter rate on land is the same as the dungeon floors and dungeons that have a higher encounter rate, as Ale has to nuke his way through, and he lost his exit caster, which is really, really unfortunate, and one of maybe you could ask for a runner, even of Ale statures. Why is your... Oh, slimes as well. We'll talk about that. A white mage in the second slot definitely exposes you to the risk of the white mage getting... Gonna have to run this out. Metal slimes, or slimes, one of the best encounters, and they're weak to fire and nuke.
Well, everybody's weak to nuke because it doesn't have an elemental on it. But yeah, they're weak to fire. They're good experience, and they come in packs. So one cast of these sweepers can hit a large number of them, and we make it through, and we'll see what the robot has for us. And on our other side, Thunderclawed is making his way out. Heading over, is right next to Melmond. The robot gives us a piece of adamant, so between finding TNT earlier and having adamant, I think it's time that we make a visit to our dwarves in the cave.
Yes, it's always nice when you can drop into the dwarves and say, here's your stuff, give me some stuff back, as we have Temperate level 5 magic. I'm not sure if we just missed that from Ale's side, but I didn't see exactly what the white magic is. As we have, actually a Silver Sword pickup from Thunderclawed as well.
Yeah, and turns in his slab, gets it translated, learns Lefane in all of about 3 frames, I think it is. And if I'm off by a couple of frames, then, well, it's just a frame or 2. This is not a game where you need to worry about being frame perfect for a lot of things.
Except for menuing your heal pots when your heal pots are in the middle slot and you're healing your third character. But you may have noticed Thunderclawed as well did not encounter any dangers in Melmond. That's because the Zozo Melmond flag is off. Yes, there are some flags that are very popular in terms of like Confused Old Men, Zozo Melmond, things that are kind of possibly staples in Final Fantasy Randomizer, but these flags were designed by a selected committee of community members and people with experience, and that committee came together, made a lot of choices, and it's one of those interesting things where not everybody got what they wanted, but I think everyone who's involved in the process is pretty happy with how things turned out.
Yeah, well, and it changes up from week to week, so if you don't see them one week, maybe the next week is more your style. I certainly can see not needing Zozo Melmond for these flags. If you're going to spend time in the Intercontinent looking for that canal, trying to break your way out, by the time you get to Melmond, most of those encounters are just annoyances and not actually helpful.
Yeah, very, very true. And if you have something like Town Shuffle on, you may be able to sneak a grind in there, depending on what the early magic is. And that is definitely a play. And while it's a niche play, it's very important. Speaking of interesting plays, Ale Markin is going to dive into the sea. And it looks like he's going to be going the Kraken side first instead of the Mermaids. This is unincentivized sea, but he is searching for 2 loose items.
Well, we know where at least one of those is. So with the slab being found in ice. And and as Falconic says in the chat, with 2 casters for Brack, he's probably going to rely on Brack strats to attempt to light his first orb.
And that's good. When we say Brack strats, all we're talking about is Kraken is not really weak to anything, but not really strong against weak to lightning, but not strong against anything, which means you can Brack the Kraken. And that will turn the Kraken to stone, and that is an instant kill. It's really nice in these kind of games when you can have your bosses be killed by instant spells, and it's something a lot of players don't realize they can do.
Right, and we use Brack because it's a particularly high accuracy, so it has a very high chance to land compared to a lot of the other one-shot kill.
And what's interesting here too, Ale, I was working on some audio difficulty. I apologize for anyone watching. I did happen to pick up a new mic today, which is exciting, but at the same time perilous to go right to broadcast with it. I don't believe Ale actually checked the TNT and adamant. Is that correct?
That is correct. He has not made it back there yet. He went out of Waterfall, and on the way out of Waterfall just went straight to Unrack. So we'll get over there, and we'll see what Mr. TNT in the chat has for us today. If he's really explosive, or if he's, not feeling up to his normal self and is just a dud.
Well, Ale's levels are pretty good right now. One of the things about doing a sea dive is that you can get some good experience fights here. Unfortunately, he's not seeing a lot of them, and the Wisahag fight is one of the required fights because it is linked to another encounter, which is also unrunnable, which is why you see the wait button there. But Ale looks like he's just going for the kill. He wants some calamari for lunch today. And Gershark Big Eye is one of your encounters that does have really high experience. So you can see that's why he's taking this fight, as Thunder gets his TNT. But one of the things you learn, and one of the things I had to learn when I was learning this game, was how to get your experience while you're moving around the world. You got to find good fights. This 4-pack of Sphinxes is actually a pretty good fight too on Thunder's side. If you can just get the attack of opportunity and get that experience, it adds up over the run. You just got to be careful because eventually you could lose too much time.
Yeah, so Falconic in chat bringing up a good question. Is Elmark in here just for the orb and run while he's on this side of the world, or is he actually searching for loose? I would say he's probably searching for loose. I've seen a lot of runners follow this logic where you dive Kraken side first, partly to check for the loose, partly to light your orb. If you find the loose that you're looking for on the way down, then you don't need to go back and check mermaids. If you do find it, you don't need to check mermaids. If you don't, it's no more difficult to go right back in and check mermaids from the beginning, since you effectively have to exit out of the dungeon anyway.
Yes, and this is where, once again, you can see Ale getting his levels here. He is using all 4 party members, but one of the important things to keep in mind is that he does have the Vorpal. Technically, he only needs to get up to level 22 to get the maximum number of swings, and he is going to have access to Temper at level 5 and Fast at level 3. Thank you, Danny, for your great notes there. But the one thing he doesn't have is Tail, and his fighter cannot equip the Vorpal without promoting to a Knight. So that's going to be an issue potentially going forward as Ale is dropping doors in the water. As we have a gold bracelet pickup, and we have mad ponies running around in the sea. Who knew? As yes, Chu pointing out, there are still some visual glitches that we have left in the randomizer. One of them is if you go to the pause menu on a door, and then you go back to the main menu, it throws a door. There's some other visual glitches in there too. Or there's the out of bounds bat, which Thunder may be able to say hello to. I didn't see it on the on Ale's side, as we have Sea Snakes as well. But it looks like Thunder is going to go with the fight Kraken and carry on. I don't know if he's going to check Mermaid's side now or later, especially with those 2 chain items to turn in.
I do agree. I always look forward to seeing Out of Bounds Bat or Ubat.
I barely saw it
because he never gets in your way.
We do not have NPC Guillotine on for the spring tournament or for these flags, unfortunately. So there's the Lit 2 that cost Ale some issues coming back for Thunderclawed. But Thunder, because he has Milk available as well as Ham, he does still have an Exit Caster. Could make up a tiny bit of time, potentially.
Yeah, and the other thing I noticed is that he's been running around with Ham in the first slot. And so that first slot does take 50% or so of the hits, assuming you have all 4 characters. And then, so it's most likely to be hit, so it's a tank, and he's effectively killed off that character. I'd be interested to see if he brings that character back up. I would probably avoid it unless you're in, Temple of Fiends and you want somebody to take a shot.
Speaking of Fiends, Ale trying to brack the Kraken. He casts Wall on his Black Mages, and there's another Brack. Brack 3, Brack 4, and broken into pieces. The Kraken is now stone. And that's 1 orb, almost lit for Ale. You never like to see those encounters there, but Ale lighting the first orb, and it looks like Thunder is going to just carry on here. And is Ale gonna dive mermaids? It looks like he is. He's gonna do a full clear. This could pay out, or it might not. We'll find out.
Yeah, it's a fairly sizable number of chests, although there's a nasty floor or so to get through on the way down. I just have nightmares about the ghost encounter. The ghosts are can be a fairly large pack, and they have the highest melee attack in the game. so that they can wreck your dive in one encounter.
And he also does not have key to open the fun chest. One thing that was not really realized or appreciated until after this randomizer was in development is that there are certain doors that are key locked, including the moon-shaped place in the Sea Shrine. In the default game, you would absolutely have the key by the time you got here. But in the randomizer, where you can sequence break all over the place, you can be stuck out of getting a chest. And I have seen that chest hold the goods here, but I think Ale is either looking for gear or looking for key items. He's following the Lord Fizzlebeef's school of clearing what you're at while you're there, so you don't have to leave it later. Thunder, always a little bit more of a greedy player. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. We'll see how it goes as Ale gets cloth once again and a Mazamune. That is the goods. The tail is off the table. What a find.
I wouldn't say it's off the table. There's the life to that, but it certainly reduces your desire for tail by a huge amount. You know you can make it through Temple of Fiends. Vorpal was going to be a little iffy. Vorpal really shine, and there's a defense sword too. Vorpal really shines at the higher percentage bosses. So by that we mean that our bosses and our enemies have a range of stats. They can have many more many more health, much more attack, defense than in the vanilla game, or they can have much less. So you never know what you're going to get. The higher the percentage, the more likely you're going to need Vorpal and its crit to actually get through and damage those bosses. And this seed has a 230% maximum, which is standard, so it's probably a little bit low to really need Vorpal, and so it's not really necessarily a required item in this particular flag set.
And there's the dragon armor as well, another thing that you need tail to equip. So Ale would certainly like to see the tail if he can get it. What he'd really like to see is a loose item here. Now, Mazamune and defense are not incentivized items. Those are just, I guess, the mermaids are also very famous swordsmiths, and they were just hiding the goods. But Ale does have his gear plan in place, and he does have the spells to make it work. Thunder, meanwhile, looks like he's going to be going 3-man strats the rest of the way, as if this chest does not have anything, then Ale will have gotten some weapons, and Mazamune can buy you some time, as something had Stone Touch there. That's something I didn't see earlier. But Thunder about to see if he can brack a Kraken. Feel like we need a theme song for that.
Well, I'm sure there are some people in the community that would be much better at that than I would be. And in our community we have some very talented members. We have developers that are working on all sorts of hacks and modifications to the game. Recently I saw something that was allowing thieves or ninjas to dual wield. We've pulled in an independent developer and are now trying to work in the randomizer with this deep dungeon idea, this single dungeon for the entire game. And there's some musicians that are trying to play covers and put that together, which is not something I would feel qualified to do.
No, but it does go to show that even with a game of this age, as we're out of brack charges now, well, not on Rydia there, but there's still a lot of love for a game that has a lot of age on it. But yes, the Deep Dungeon is a very interesting mod. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but if you're familiar with the very popular Lafia 2 or Earthbound randomizers, they kind of have a similar feel where you just dive. I've heard a lot of good things about it. Thunder's actually done a lot of playing of it as well. As we have our crown turn in, Ale going to be doing a 3-for-1 drop-off here. As there's the chime, as we can hear Weirdo starting to say the ancient chant of his people, sky, sky, sky.
You're missing a sky there, but I guess you're not a full cultist yet. We also do need a cube, though, to actually get into the Sky Castle, the floating castle, and not just into Mirage Tower. So we're missing cube, and then I was trying to look, what else are we missing? We are missing the key.
And the ruby, which is very important here, as we have 45-minute credits. Gotta love that with the free ship. But we'll
Yep.
see if we can get some goods here, because without the floater, there's a hooray. We do have a potential for, well, go ahead and say it, weirdo.
Sky, 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 sky. And yeah, and while we've been worried about my favorite location, Thunderclawed finally manages to take down Kraken, does not get the Brack, has to go nuke and damage strats, that Zeus Gauntlet coming in handy there. Elmarkin finding the float.
Yeah, just a little tiny rock that floats, and suddenly it can make a boat float. Who knew?
And Elmarkin hops right back in his regular water ship, and it looks to me to be going straight over to turn in that floater.
Now, what's really interesting, and if you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is that at least from the items that you need to finish the game, you need the loot. We've had the loot this whole game. We need access to Sky Castle. We have that now between the Chime and the Cube. We need the Rod to get through Earth. And we have the Oxyale because both players have lit their water orb. We're missing a key. That key could be locked behind the floater, or that key could still be loose because we have one loose item pending. And it would be a really good news for Thunderclawed if that slab that he eked out of Ice Cave after so many dives ends up being the key.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but we could have also had the key all along. It could be hidden in the bottle, and we just need to open it up and ask the fairy what she has. So we can do that now that we have the airship. So we'll see where Aelmarkin is going to go. I'm a big fan of going straight to east and checking Sarda so I don't forget him, because I've never ever forgotten Sarda in a scene.
I totally never have either. In fact, nobody's ever. You never forget Sarda, ever, ever.
Yeah, I mean, just one old man living in a cave by himself on the edge of the world.
And I heard he even has Wi-Fi in that cave now.
Oh man, that sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, it's 2020. We got to modernize a little bit. Is Aelmarkin doing some shopping, getting some pro rings? The prices are 350% on these flags, so stuff is not cheap. You can see the gold bracelet. He's selling the heel helmet. Thunderclawed is kind of following the steps of Aelmarkin right now. Pretty much the difference is that ice dive. And we're going to see if Ale is going to be right, because right now Ale knows that there's still 2 loose items out there. I think what's going to be the long-term look of this race is, was that ice dive required after all?
Yep, and Gregory Puff asking we have Chime, and Falconic is correct. Astos the kindly old king gave us the Chime before Astos jumped out and tried to murder us and him.
And Pyrelight bringing up a great point in chat. The Titan has Wi-Fi. Sarda is just kind of stealing it. Because, you know, that signal's really easy to get.
Oh, they're right next door. Why not?
Because the Titan's paying for the Wi-Fi this whole time. Thunder now having Sky Access. We're going to see if this bottle is a big deal or a Thor hammer. We'll know soon enough. This is the long walk through town. So what does a tiny fairy give you today? It's Opal Bracelet! Oh, Thunder! Thunder may have just gotten some life if the slab is indeed the key. Opal Bracelet is good, it's just not what you want right now, as Ale crashes his airship into the mountains, as is tradition. And he's gonna go where?
Sky, 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 sky. Yep, here we go through, and we'll see how many checks Aelmarkin is going to make. I do know that some people like to skip, especially Mirage 2. Certainly the encounters on these lower floors are not as friendly, not as experience heavy, and Catmen and Mancats can have, or will often have some nasty stuff.
Yeah, but one of the nice things is that because they have a lot of Lit 3 charges, guards are on the menu. Guards come in pretty large packs and will give some good experience and are weak to lightning and are typically not that beefy. So that's one of the encounters you can look for. But right now he's getting a bunch of chimeras, and those are good for nukes, but you want to save those nukes for the stuff that's a little higher up.
Yeah, I'd rather wait for, I believe there's the Manticores further up. But yeah, so Aelmarkin is reset out. He did find the black shirt in there, but that's probably something, if you really want it, you'd come back for it. But not as useful at this point in the game. It does cast Ice too, but most enemies are not going to die to a low level or a medium level spell like that at this point.
It has death protection, but you have to be able to equip it, which we know Ale is not looking to have the tail unless he has to die of ice eventually. But Falconic, I think you might be right. Ale Markin might be running with a naked fighter right now, and that would be a little awkward if he ends up getting beaten in one hit. As Thunder is going for Lefane. We need a drum roll or something in here. This could be really big, or it could be kind of a disaster. As we have a people blocking Lefane. And it's Ruby! Oh, that could be huge.
So the fetch quest continues.
Ruby is something where maybe if you play the randomizer, you're like, okay, yeah, whatever. We do have Titan's Trove on, so the Titan is blocking the 4 chests. But in this flag set, Titan's Trove is also incentivized. So there is a key item back there. The quest chain continues.
Yeah, that is certainly that's one of the more recent changes, and I like having it it incentivizes a set of checks that otherwise you would completely ignore. Ilmarkin picks up one of the pieces of armor that he has been looking for. He picks up a ribbon, which gives protection against every element. It doesn't have a lot of armor value, but it's certainly one of those things. It protects against everything, so you put that on either your life caster or maybe your damage dealer for your final battles at the end of the game.
Alright, so we have Thunder checking the Cardia Islands, also a place where loose items like to hide. There's the guard pack. Ale's not going to take it because he just wants to get up into the Sky Castle. Cerebus's are actually another fight that's pretty good for experience if you have ice, but he doesn't, and he doesn't want to use his nuke charges. As Thunder's dodging dragons, Ale doing the sacrilegious going left in the cube teleporter room. There's this unrunnable sandworm, which are good experience. But
yeah, they're just a little bit tough for what you get out of them, usually.
Yeah. I mean, it's a solid grind, but they like to run, and there's Gurmedusas, so one of the nice things about Sky is that if you take your time and go through here, you can get the levels that you need.
No, absolutely, although 4 hits, okay, the Medusas only have Poison Touch. We've certainly had some Gurmedusas of Doom famously in certain seeds.
Yes. It's always a pleasure when they roll Stun Touch, Stone Touch, or Death Touch.
Yeah, they're not the strongest late game enemy, but they come in packs. They have a lot of hits per monster, so if they have a touch attack, that just goes right through everything. Elmarkin using that Masamune to good effect, just chewing through that sandworm. And here he's going to stop and take these metal slimes. This is what we talk about with Sky being a walking grind.
And he has fire too. And also, if he's on the first floor here, these metal slimes, I believe, correct me, chat, if I'm wrong, as I know Twitch chat loves to do, this is encounter 8 on this floor. So this is an encounter you're not typically going to see. But thanks, Meridian BC, it is a gift that we now can get metal slimes on this floor.
Yeah, sometimes that sounds a little accusatory, but anything that lets us see our blue stakes, our T-Rex, is a good thing.
As you can see, Thunderclawed on the other side. He went to Mount Ordeals. He has Paladin Cecil. He has Golbez, I assume from the after years at some point, and Adult Rydia now. Thank you, Airborne Muffins. I appreciate being told I'm wrong. Not the first or last time I'll be told that today. And hello, Cheese. Hope you're doing well. And Pyrelight, just one thing to keep in mind about the Excalibur is that with weapon fixes on, the Excalibur is not the be-all, end-all sword that it is in technically vanilla Final Fantasy I randomizer. The issue comes down to it hits hard. It does hit elemental weaknesses, so it's great for clearing a lot of the games, but where you run into trouble is typically with Tiamat and Chaos if they get high absorb, and you need that crit. Excalibur lags behind Masamune, Katana, and Vorpal because it does not have the crit.
Yeah, and especially those fiends. It's funny, it was fiends and it's early game enemies that don't have those elemental weaknesses. So I always found it, I found it strange. One of the first things I saw in this community was, here's a list of enemies that are immune to Excal. And like, why are imps immune to X-Cal? But you just hit them hard enough and they fall over anyway.
Well, if you're hitting imps with your X-Cal, you're either having a really good time or you're playing Randomizer, which is another feature on the beta site for the Randomizer, which does a whole lot of work changing up the flags, the enemy placement. One Fine Day community member has done a lot of great work on that, and you'll see some very familiar sprites in some very unfamiliar places. It's a real fun, different way to play, as Ale is going to get our incentive chest for Sky, and it's key! That's big.
Yeah, that is his last item that he needs officially, so that puts him into go mode. He can just run straight through all of these dungeons, only taking what he needs. There's a couple of things that'd be nice to find, Tail and Power Bonk, but he does not need to check any chests from this point on.
And Titan's Tunnel had Thor Hammer, so that is a big womp womp there. Meaning that slab from Ice Cave that he fought so hard to get is not a good payoff. Maybe the tail will be enough to give him some advantage here. Here's the herb from Sarda. There's a joke there. I'm not going to make it. But at this point, Ale has, because of the item placement, got himself in a huge, huge lead on Thunderclad.
Yeah, and it's pretty much they both took a guess and they took a different guess, and randomizers it randomized for a reason.
And that's one of the interesting features of this flag set and the way the key item placement works out, is that there are a lot of times where maybe one of the key item dungeons or two of the key item dungeons, or rarely all three of the key item dungeons, those being the incentivized ordeals, ice, and even like something like Sky Castle today, sometimes they're just not required. Sometimes Waterfall's not required. And the best thing you can do is just guess, as we are on the Bridge of Destiny. If somebody wants to see a war mech, you can get your Bless RNGs out now. If you want to get some nachos, it's a good time for that too.
Now, we did see a nacho earlier from Thunderclad, but we're not going to see one today as Aelmarkin cruises down the Bridge of Destiny to fight the Air Fiend Tiamat.
The Queen of the Dragons, also brackable if you can get it through. And right now, that is exactly the strategy he's going for, as Thunderclad is continuing to dig chest, at least from our meta-knowledge of everything else, knowing where everything is at this point. I believe the only item we have yet to find is, well, let's see here. We have Opal. I'm just looking at the notes from Danny here. I think we actually have everything accounted for, because the herb turned into the Power Gauntlet.
Yep, and from Sarda, so visiting Sarda in this cave, always a good idea. That Power Bonk, especially with Temper being level 5 magic, you don't have as many casts of that. Although Masamune and X-Cal don't need that nearly as much as Vorpal typically does.
Yes, and I do want to call myself out for a moment, and I do apologize for this, but this is where Danny, also taking great notes, is something where when you're an hour into a seed, sometimes you forget some details that you have, and one of those details is that we found both loose items that are out and available along with the canal, because the very first chest these runners opened was the canoe. So at this point, the players are checking chests because maybe they don't have all the knowledge, but I've unfortunately not running the race, just calling the race. I did miss that detail for what number of chests they're looking for. So Ale's in go mode, even with one loose item missing on his end. Thunderclad knows that both loose items are not available, and he knows he's going to have to do a check that he probably doesn't want to have to do for key, and that's try to get up to Sky.
Yep, and so Aelmarkin lights his second orb just a minute or so before Thunderclad does. Has the water and air orbs lit. Thunderclad went through Volcano while he's over here, just ran through Carrie, who at this level and this gear level is not much of a challenge. But we see, so has the second orb lit, although Aelmarkin is going to have a much easier time getting the third lit than Thunderclad will. So we'll see that lead come back here in a moment. So while we have these runners retracing each other's steps and doing what we've seen, I'll just encourage everyone once again, go sign up for our spring tournament. The sign-ups end on March 15th, so you only have a couple of days. No experience is needed. You are guaranteed 6 games in our Swiss rounds. It is the biggest tournament yet. We have newcomers, we have people coming back to the game, we have our experienced veterans. So just come and play. We'll have a lot of content, a lot of races going on. You'll probably hear way too much of me, or I'll jump behind the scenes and do what our wonderful Danny is doing and track the races as well.
Spring tournaments, it's a lot of fun. You may say to yourself, what am I trying to do here? It's Final Fantasy Randomizer. Maybe I don't know it as well. Well, there's no better time to dive in than during the spring tournament. There's a lot of people playing. There's a lot of new people you can meet. It's a really fun community. I've had a really good time since I joined it, and I think you could too.
Yeah, certainly. I came in during the spring tournament last year and learned a lot about the game by watching, by seeing all those. And I understand if you're a racer, then you'll learn a lot more too. You'll learn why Cheesenator is not expecting you to go to Marsh. If you don't remember from Vanilla. And we have some other stuff going on as well as we're singing in chat. So first off, say, Danny is our tracker, so her link, give her a follow. I know she hates it when we watch her race, but you can still certainly learn something from her. She is a co-op champion and a generally very nice person, does a lot of work behind the scenes setting up these races. You have Asher. I know Asher puts out quite a bit of content, streams quite a bit. Both Final Fantasy Randomizer and some other games. And then we'll figure out a way to get you links to our racers, Ailmarkin and Thunderclawed. Both, again, very strong runners, very active members of our community, and good people to learn from. Okay, Ailmarkin does stop by Sarda and pick up his power bonk. Yeah, I do think that's a little strange, Cheesenator. If Ailmarkin finds the tail, then he does have that dragon armor he can throw on there, but using the opal on the fighter rather than the gold and a gold bracelet on the white mage rather than buffing up it, especially those life casters are the ones you want to have the most armor on. As long as one of them survives, you can bring back that whole party. Okay, and we see Ailmarkin entering his 4th Fiend Dungeon, skipping the chest, even that free check over to the right. That's usually one I still check go mode. I don't check this one, but he does, and it pays off for him with maximum gold. Although I bet he's going to wish we had NPC Guillotine as the bat gets in his way for a little bit. Dang bats. Thunderclawed making his way up is going to, gets a 1 Medusa pack. And does remember to go over to the left and check that incentivized location in Sky. Is down to 2 members, so one thing we did mention about keeping the number of members up earlier, right? Again, the way the vanilla game works is the fewer characters you have, each encounter gives you a set amount of experience, and it's divided amongst the living characters at the end of the encounter. So having 2 characters means that they'll both get twice the amount of XP. So if you can do that, that's a good way to boost a single character or a couple of characters to a much higher level, and that can be very useful for sword swings, black belt punches, getting a specific spell level, and so on. And Ailmarkin makes it through there's something there that I know Asher likes to point out, but I still don't see anything. There's a little speed bump, short of a cloud of glitter, and Ilmarkin just ran right on through it. Okay. And Thunderclawed finding one of my favorite encounters up here, the 4 red Hydras. It's a lot of experience, except Stun Touch isn't so nice. Although Nuke takes him out, picks up a lot of experience, and they're relatively low hit point for the level of monster there are. Ale Marking pulls Lich, the weakest of the fiends, unless you're a vanilla speedrunner, in which case he might be one of the scariest ones. Takes 1,000 damage, dies immediately, does not get off his Ice 2 or Blizzara 2. And oh, is it Fire 2? I thought it was Ice 2, but headed back over, just picking up his spells, and we've got all 4 orbs, so it's time for the Temple of Fiends Revisited. Looks like he's not going to get his tail in promotion, but doesn't really need it. Over here, since he's got the keys, checking chests, but he might be looking for a grind tile. Maybe Ilmarkin is not comfortable with his levels yet. Does have 1 ribbon, but might want another one. That's a good point, Falconic. Didn't check the grind tiles, so yeah, I would have been comfortable with the levels, so... but certainly he's checking these chests. He's also missing 1 loose item, so maybe he's hoping that 1 loose item is the tail. And now his fighter's not so naked. I only saw him check 1 chest in that treasury, which was a little strange. Okay. Yeah, it's very possible that he knew what was in there, he checked it before and reset out of it or something. So, Ice Sword, Flame Sword, Dragon Sword, some change, so... and a wooden stick. And Thunderclawed, our prayers have been answered. We get to see the robot chicken. Thunderclawed is going to fight Warmech. This is a fantastic encounter for a couple of reasons. First off, it's worth a lot of experience. Second, he doesn't... because he's part of the boss pool along with the Fiend refights. He gets his skills shuffled, so that's why you don't see Nuclear, you saw Crack. But it also gives you some information about what you'll find in the Temple of Fiends. Ilmarkin does find a second ribbon in the Caneria treasury, and heads over to fill up his inventory, adjusting the number of heal potions. Right, so that he can max those out, and Thunderclawed makes it through the Warmech and heads on through to fight Tiamat, fight his 3rd fiend. So one thing that reminds me of is if you're a fan of vanilla, you can play vanilla just with a few improvements. We call it quality of life changes, like this: buy 10 potions at a time. So instead of having to buy 1 potion at a time for all 99, you can just go through and keep going 1 at a time. Ilmarkin resets out of the spiders and heading on down. Would rather run away from these white dragons, frost dragons. So, and that's at 1:10 that he's entered the Temple of Fiends Revisited. Thunderclawed, still fighting Tiamat, has not made it through with Brack and is tempering and bonking up his fighter, or his knight rather. So, Because it's hard to tell who Cecil is exactly. But with and those white shirts for the Invis 2 cast, which will prevent melee or add to your evade and reduce the chance of getting a melee hit. Yeah, if you can get enough white shirt casts. Oh, and then he hits. You see the power of those tempers and that power bonk. Hits for 817 damage, finishing off Tiamat, lighting his third orb, and making his way back to his airship. Although he does get to find some sandworms along the way. So this is why you save right after exiting. This is, although he's making short work of the sandworms. You never know when you're going to hit that red Ankylo unrunnable encounter they're just not fun enemies to fight. Even if they don't have anything dangerous, they can take a lot of damage and they can finish you off if you're still weak. So let's see, Thunderclawed is effectively is in go mode, so it's on his way to Earth to fight the Lich and light his fourth orb, so he'll be entering Temple of Fiends a good, 6 or 8 minutes behind Elmark. And as we watch, Elmarkin has made it down to the Earth floor, so made it through the slight maze and the ups and downs, and now we're heading down to our first Fiend refight. Thunderclawed enjoying the bats. Key indeed. And we keep stumbling over a lot of encounters, but these are not terribly bad encounters. I would not... I don't even know where I was going with that anymore, so... we'll get back to the fight. Lich takes a nuke to the face, and a punch to the face, 4 hits for only 186. Takes a harm 3, good use of those spell slots. And Lich has nuke. So that is vanilla. That Lich has a nuke, but not in the same order. But yeah, that is not a spell you want to see. And I'd imagine that is what Thunderclawed wants to see. If the more gatekeepers we have, the more that promotion that Thunderclawed has is going to come into play, the more that's going to help him out. Yep, and Cheesinator called it right there. Disrespecting Lich, although we normally do that, but a turn 1 nuke is certainly, and of course we don't know what the rest of what they have. Thunderclawed almost left the Aegis Shield behind, but especially since he's promoted, he can use that. It has immunities in it, protection in it. So certainly between Dragon Armor and Aegis Shield and a Pro Ring, that's called the Fighter Ribbon. So you can protect yourself from most of the different types of magic with that combo, and then save your ribbon for someone else like Ham. And thank you, Cheesinator, for helping fill in the gaps. It's stone and poison, which certainly will help you against Bane. It'll help against Brack, which is just stone. And there's a couple of other things that you might run into along the way, too. Yeah, poison from Gasties. Although I think we've seen damage poison on an enemy already, so we probably won't see that again. Okay, Thunderclaw taking the Falconic approved route of always take the south route in Earth. Saves you 2 steps, I believe, over the course of that floor. And sometimes those 2 steps are important. I do not know vanilla that well, Link Shot. I know we do have some runners in our community that do race vanilla, particularly on the PSP version. There's a lot of vanilla runners, but we do have some resources linked in our Discord. And yeah, Asher, they get to deal with me for a little bit, but no big deal. Take care of your stuff. But so Elmarkin takes the nuke and is healing up from it, while Thunderclaw diving in, making it in 1 hour 16 minutes. So he's only a couple minutes behind now, thanks to that nuke from Lich, but we'll see how that affects his party. He's is promoted, has a little bit different gear, different spell sets. Elmarkin finding some Agamas, running away from them, and prepping. He's not disrespecting Carrie and is getting ready for this fight. Thunderclaw sees a bad man pack, which is one of the worst encounters. Just there's a lot of them, and if they roll spells, they're not fun. Elmarkin taking on Carrie. White shirts come out, couple of physical attacks. A nuke comes out, chipping away at that health. Haven't had anything too scary come out yet. 4 hits, 223 damage, and Carrie 2 goes down. So Lich had the boom, Carrie just kind of melted. Let's see, Thunderclaw making his way through the stairs hidden by the loot and making ways down. Elmarkin is onto the seafloor, has a very clean run of it until the very end, finds 2 seafood party platters, as we like to call this troll, lobster, sea snake pack. Thunderclawed onto the earth floor, find some mud golems. We know have lit 2, annoying but not too bad. Elmark casts Fast. Kraken only has Ice 2 for his first round, not too bad so far. Using those white shirts, Kraken 2 is probably the scariest of the Fiendry fights. Just, you do not want to get hugged.
No, you definitely do not want to get hugged. Thank you for holding the fort, weirdo, while I had to step away for a minute, as there's a nuke on Kraken, and there is Y getting the Kraken Hug of Doom.
At least it was Y and not one of us.
Yeah, that's your life caster, though, so it could be dicey going forward, but, I mean, Kraken does have some heft, as Thunder is plugging away, taking down Lich.
Yeah, Thunder makes it through on his first time, just tanks that nuke to the face and just rolls right on through.
And sometimes that's what you need with some early seed adversity, is to have your opponent get some late seed adversity. Thunder now taking on the Queen of the Dragons, Tiamat 2, as here comes the Tempers, and there is a swing for 4 for 95 damage. So this is a high absorb Tiamat with a zap, and there is Weirdo going down for the count.
Hey, I'm not down, I'm in the 4th dimension.
Oh, hey, it's all good. So there is another hit, 6 hits for 397. That's a little better. There's damage poison coming out. Unfortunately, Asher and Zach having some resistance to that due to levels. And fortunately, Elmarkin gets through with 2 Light Warriors because that Tiamat did not have a ton of health. As Thundercloud gets through, or is going against Carrie now. Carrie trying to bring out all the stops, but it doesn't quite work.
Yeah, and we know from Elmarkin's dive that this Carrie is relatively weak and just melts away with that.
As here we have the final boss. It's Garland all along. No, it's Chaos. As interestingly enough, Elmarkin choosing not to rearrange his party members, keeping his Black Mage in the 3rd slot, letting Zach eat the hits, and he is trying to put up defenses early. He's going to need it. Oh, there's a Bane as well, but it looks like El Markin might be able to get his early buffs, and that could be the difference here. So there's a miss.
He's had 2 defense hits, or 2 uses of defense and 2 uses of the white shirt, so his fighter is evade capped, and that's why he's moved over to the power bonk to increase his damage. And it shows 8 hits for 641.
Yeah, you get your tempers out, you got your Mazamune swings, and you are going to be in good shape here as Asher gets hit for a little bit. That's who you want to get hit instead of Zach, and there's 1,000 damage. Not enough to take out Chaos, but we've got to be close now as there's another temper out. And there's a swing. 8 hits, another 1,000 damage. Chaos has been eating his protein today.
Yeah, that's over 3,000 damage, so we've got to be getting close. Even maximum on this seed, 4,600. Elmarkin, one more swing, takes down Chaos. GG Elmarkin taking the race in first place. The time of 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds.
And that is a really good time given the flag set here where you do have the 2 loose and you do have the air dive. You definitely want to try and target an hour and a half, and if you can. Anything under is really, really, really nice, as we have Thundercloud going to take on Tiamat as well. And it looks like we have El Markin in with us at the booth. GG, sir.
Thank you, guys. That was a fun little seed there.
Yeah, so I think we've seen like one big route divergence from you guys. Can you talk to us about your choice after Volcano?
So after Volcano, I just felt like there was more options to me if I left and went and checked other incentive places. So I was just kind of hoping and gambling on Ice Cave not being required, and it feels like it kind of was. It looks like maybe I could have got class change out of it, but...
Yes, the Ice Cave ended up having the tail, and it had the slab, but the slab ended up turning into the Thor hammer. So definitely Ice was skippable, and it was brutal, the Thunderclad.
Yeah, slab led to Ruby to Thor hammer, so it was a long fetch quest that led nowhere. As Thunderclad makes his way through Tiamat and is about to take on Garland. Oh, Big Garland.
Big Garland, big skull knee pad Garland, as he gets his spells out early. He has all 4 people up, the fast, the temper, and right away Chaos just swinging for the knight, as he has the power gauntlet as well. But we saw that Elmarkin didn't really have too much trouble with Chaos. Chaos not doing a lot other than punching and lit 2ing. So this should be Thunderclaws to take. About the only difference is what's Thunderclad swinging and how many tempers is he going to need to swing it into Chaos's face.
Yeah, and there's something we didn't see from Elmarkin is that Chaos has Poison Touch, although it's not exactly going to do a lot of work in this case. Not going to make a big difference.
No, and just a little tip there, if you haven't already mentioned it, Cure 4 does heal statuses, so that's pretty solid there. As Bane goes through, does not hit anybody at all. So what a good turn for you, Chaos. You're just gonna get thwacked here again in just a second. 8 hits
I did
for
not.
1422.
I did not catch if Thunderclad found that second ribbon in Caneria Treasury. Falconic suggested Elmarkin that that's what you were looking for when you did all those checks. Was that with all the key locked checks? Is that what you were looking for? The only thing?
Yeah, so I wasn't gonna go dive any more dungeons, and I wasn't gonna revisit, anything that I skipped, because I pretty much go-moded the whole second half of Volcano. I pretty much go-moded all but 2 chests in Earth. So I was hoping either for a second ribbon or maybe just like the tail, so I can make use of that dragon armor that I'd found. And I was really happy when that second ribbon popped up. So
Yeah, it certainly paid off. So GG to Thunderclad, finishing up Chaos with a time of 1 hour, 25 minutes, and 21 seconds officially.
And we'll see if we can get Thunderclad brought in here in just a moment. So Ale, any particular, I guess probably the best thing to ask since we're on the eve of spring tournament, do you have an elevator pitch you want to give people who might be on the fence about joining the spring tournament?
I mean, I can't really say anything new that hasn't already been said by a lot of people in a lot of different ways already. I think the biggest thing is just to kind of jump in, get your feet wet. You don't really have to ever, for the most part, you kind of do, but you kind of don't have to worry about getting placed out of your league, because as the weeks go on, you'll be facing people with the same ranking or the same win-loss rate as you. So you'll have a lot of experience, and you'll eventually get kind of meshed out against people who are along the same experience. So spring tournament's definitely like a great time to jump into the randomizer, get your feet wet, start getting to know the runners, and everyone's really helpful. So.
Well, thank you for that. And we have a Thunderclawed in the booth as well. GG to you, sir. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay.
So I've got to start with this. I want to credit you for your perseverance in Ice Cave, even if it didn't end up paying out for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your thought process going through Ice?
Well, it was a long trip back, and when you go to Ice with a canoe, you really want to try to commit as much as you can. And it actually did end up paying out really well as far as finding the second loose right away. But yeah, unfortunately, the actual incentive box was nothing I really cared for at the time.
Well, that's true too, and unfortunately here in the booth, when you get a canoe that early, I actually was watching it and forgot that you'd found the other loose in the canoe at the very beginning. But that just goes to show I'm not quite on the level of you guys as runners here, because early canoe, that puts a lot more things into play as well. I'm just trying to think here. Weirdo, you got any other questions for these two fine runners today?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just keep going on with Ice. It's how do you decide how long to stay in a place like that where you're having to reset multiple times? I mean, obviously you stuck with it all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I probably would have given up on trying if I didn't get past like the first couple floors and another 3 tries or so. I probably would have tried to just go somewhere else. But I don't know. It was just a kind of a matter of manipulating out the bad packs that I was seeing on the way down, and then once I got to the incentive box, I knew I was just gonna be able to exit out. So it wasn't a big deal to get down there. Just past the first couple floors was pretty hard. And then, of course, getting ambushed by the water tile when I finally got past them was pretty good, too.
Yeah, and then the other question I have is, how do you guys feel about that vanilla lich?
I think I hit him with a nuke and he died.
I was walking up. I did 2 dives in Topher. So I made my way to him on the first attempt. And I was like, should be fine. 2 nuke casters. Got this white mage for backup. Got a Masa. I'll just punch him. Nuke goes out. Harm 3 goes out. Massa goes out. Lich is like, oh, is that nice? And he nukes me and kills most of my people.
Oh, you're talking Lich 2. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Lich 2, not Lich 1. Sorry.
Yeah, I got quite a different experience. I think he just tried to punch me twice.
Yeah, I disrespected him the first dive, and he taught me how wrong I was to do that too.
You said you had a Massa. Where was that at?
Massa was in Mermaids, as well as the defense sword and the dragon armor, but I never had the tail, so I never got to use the dragon.
I considered diving it after I sold the Vorpal for money early in the game, just because I knew I was going to have to either find an X-Skal or a Massa. I ended up finding the X-Skal in Cardia, so I just didn't. Sounds like that was the play to make.
Yeah, well, you guys made some... that one early game choice was really the difference in this race, where we had one go to Ice and beat your head against Ice for a little bit, which was not a choice, where Ilmarkin went west through back to Elfland, picked up spells, and then ended up sailing the high seas.
Yeah, consider doing that. It worked out well for me in a different race. Probably should have did it in this one too.
Yeah, but then you made up a lot of time. You were 10 minutes behind at one point, and then ended up finishing only about 3 minutes behind. So it's still a fantastic job, and you can see where you made the most of the advantages that you did pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was still a lot of hand-holding early on. You all were pretty close, even if it was a slow go through the Garland fight at the very beginning. It was just that one route divergence that ended up making the difference today.
Yep.
But you all
Thunder
both
creeps,
ran a
huh?
very good. You all both ran a very good race.
Yeah, it's nice to be, right up there with Thunder, because I know in a lot of races he and I have kind of gone back and forth, and for there only be a 3-minute difference between the two of us really speaks to how much one little routing decision can either make or break a race for.
Yeah, and neither of those were wrong. They were just a different choice before you knew what was going on.
And at the end of the day, that's kind of the name of the game in FF1 Randomizer, at least for the spring tournament. There's some gambles that you take, and sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But at the end of the day, if you're know your game, know a strong enough runner, you can bounce back. Like, even though Thunderclawed wiped in ice a bunch of times, he also knew where the second loose was, whereas Ale ended up full clearing Sea Shrine, which worked out. But that was time that Thunder was able to creep back just a little bit. So a fascinating back and forth.
Yeah, so thank you guys for stepping up to be restreamed today. And I mean, that's kind of the questions I have. So is any other final comments from you guys? We'll start with Ale Markin.
No, I think it's a great race, and I think these flags are, even though they change up a little bit week to week, I think there's going to be enough variance between every week with only the incentive Fiend Dungeon changing that. You'll see a lot of route divergence in the seeds, and I feel like each route, or each week rather, will be kind of fresh. Like, it's not going to get stale super fast like I feel like some of the tournaments may have in the past. So I think that's going to be really nice to see.
Thank you, sir. And Thunder?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate for what I believe too. The having to get mostly getting funneled into different dungeons based on incentives is going to make the spring tournament pretty interesting, because you have to really change up how you approach the early game a little bit. Although it was really funny that this was a sky flag and then nothing pointed you to sky until the very end.
There's still a required item. It's always a great play to go to Sky.
Mm-hmm.
I may or may not be biased.
Just a little.
Yeah, I'm willing to admit it. And so, other than that, I want to make sure we say thank you to Danny3883 for setting up this race again, and tracking for us, keeping track of everything, and both on the tracker that you see and keeping us on the right path, and any mistakes we make are ours and not hers. Asher, it's been great being in comms with you. I know we have a couple of things coming up, so that's what I was looking up real quick. I know we have a race tonight as part of the Iron Goal series.
And if you haven't paid much attention to the Iron Goal series, it's kind of a new thing with the Final Fantasy 1 Randomizer Discord, which you should join. I know Danny put the link in there already. But it's a really exciting new prospect, because it's runners just playing against each other, and they get to choose their own flags and challenge each other, all for the championships. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've had a lot of different formats so far. We've had 2 runners that agreed to an 8-hour who can beat the most seeds in that time on a Sunday afternoon. We've had a fatal 4-way. A lot of it's sort of a little bit modeled after some of the wrestling leagues, which we have a few fans here in the community. But yeah, so we have a lot of very different seeds and very different styles of races. For example, tonight our matchup is at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Is Spellzap versus, who is our 2-time defending champion, versus Caleb. Rafe Hates Caleb is one of our veteran runners and is on a hot streak. He's won, I believe, 3 matches in a row, and they will be running a double anti-bingo race, which is one of the first bingo-related races I've seen in our community. And they will be doing this. I believe that one is an after dark race, which means it's probably restreamed by Dark Moon. Other than that, we also have a weekly Randomania race coming up tomorrow night, Thursday night, the 12th, 10 p.m. Eastern. And we have a What's All This Then race, which has some very, very strange flags. Oh, and Danny is pointing out that race tonight is on Speed Gaming 3, so happy to be back on Speed Gaming Network. We have Spells App versus Crab Cakes, who is the winner of last year's spring tournament. So these two are incredibly fast runners. Coming up that Saturday and Sunday, we have an Iron Goal Heavy Metal rank matchup between Elmarkin, who you saw today, and Dengwu. Currently, Elmarkin is the number 1 contender, and Dengwu is number 6. So we have a lot of stuff coming up, and then of course, spring tournament starts next week, and
let's not forget too. Even though we're getting to the spring tournament, since you brought up Dengwu is one of our curators that puts everything up on YouTube. So if you're watching us from YouTube as well, welcome, hello. We're pumping out a lot of Final Fantasy 1 randomizer content lately. So whether you're watching it on Twitch, YouTube, Speed Gaming, thank you again for hosting us, Randomania or whatever. This is a great time to get into Final Fantasy 1 randomizer.
Yeah, and that's our biggest shout out for today is thank you, Speed Gaming, for hosting us. They're a consistent host for these races, and we love being here, and we're very grateful for the distribution.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much going to cover it from here. My final thoughts are, if you want to sign up for the spring tournament, there's still time. You can join us on the Discord just whenever you want to, or even if you just want to watch, there's going to be a lot of Final Fantasy 1 randomizer races coming, and it's going to be a great time. So feel free to watch if you want to pop in to volunteer in the broadcast booth. This is a great time to learn the ropes from someone who's experienced commentating or tracking. Both Weirdo and Danny are great teachers and very useful resources. And we're just a really helpful community in general. So thank you, Thunder. Thank you, Ale, for running today. Thank you, Speed Gaming, for having us. Thank you for the tracking. And glad to join you, Weirdo, in the booth finally. You got any final thoughts to sign us out?
I think we've covered everything, so pay attention to Danny. She's the real boss. Sign-ups until March 15th. We do have new player programs if you're interested too, that we call our Duckling program. So come join us, hang out, play a classic, fantastic game that's fresh every time. And with that, I'll say thank you all for watching, and have a nice day or evening.